This is another episode of Treasure Valley NA Quick Tips. How this came to be is I am an owner of a franchise called Network in Action out of Houston, Texas. And um, I just, through that, I meet a lot of high caliber local business owners here in the Treasure Valley, Idaho. And so I thought it's a great vehicle to bring people on and share them with the audience, their expertise. So today is a perfect example. Ashton, introduce yourself.
Hey guys, I'm Ashton Rowles. I'm a commercial real estate appraiser in Meridian, Idaho, and I've been an appraiser for about 20 years. I uh, have appraised all over the world. I worked for Colliers International. I worked for the State Department and did work with embassies and properties around the country. I set up offices for past companies in Washington, D.C. and Denver and several other cities. I've helped other appraisers get going, and I moved back here in 2017 and since then have been doing appraisal work here in Idaho.
That's awesome. Yeah, because it's appraisal. It's like a lot of things. Unless you're kind of in it, you just don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So, for example, just Saturday, I have a friend in the family and talking to my parents, and he does residential appraisals, right? So they're talking about their house and stuff. So, what's the difference between residential and commercial?
So I think anybody who's bought a house, they know a lot, Scott, about they've probably seen or read an appraisal when they got their house appraised, and a commercial appraiser does exactly the same thing, but for commercial real estate. So it's usually business related or some sort of development going on. And the way our industry separates the two is we say if it's a single family home, a duplex, or a triplex, or a fourplex, it falls under the category of residential appraising. If it's anything else in the world of real estate, it falls under the category of commercial appraisal. So we do land, we do, um, you know, subdivision development, we
Oh,
do retail and office and uh, apartment complexes and everything in between.
wow. See, and I've known you for a while. I didn't know you do all that.
Yeah.
I know you do. You've mentioned some of those, but then you didn't mention all of those, so, or maybe you did, I don't remember, but I mean, so pretty much anything that's business related, but besides residential,
Yeah.
you do that. Yeah, because the friend of the family yesterday, yeah, Saturday, I mean, uh, I even asked him, and he goes, "Oh, that's a whole different beast. That commercial stuff. I don't get near that stuff."
Well, funny, we follow the exact same procedures, but what we dive into that scares a lot of people is we get into the business economics of real estate from an investor's perspective
Mhm.
and, an economic perspective. So we're looking at what's the cash flow, and is this something that you're going to that'll generate a cash flow for you long term until you sell it? Or is it something like a subdivision or a condo development where you sell off each home or condo to somebody else and that's your cash flow? So we deal a lot with finances and numbers and we have to really get into the nitty gritty. When something looks awesome on paper, it's our job to come in and say, hey, is there market evidence to support that awesome spreadsheet that says the guy's going to make $1 million on that project?
So have you ever, and I can't remember if you told me this or not, but have you ever came into somebody that owns like a building and they bought that building kind of in the craziness and the low interest rates and sight unseen kind of a deal? Have you ever found any and then found out that they bought a lemon?
Every once in a while, we'll come across that, but I would say that, the commercial industry. The guys who are usually playing with that, you
Okay.
know, that amount of investment money and capital, they're usually have some experience or working with a team and following best practices. But yeah, occasionally I have seen a few just sort of people who jumped, before doing their research, and it didn't turn out very good for them.
Yeah, I'll have to remember that, but I think it was actually a commercial inspector, so they don't do anything, they just come in, but it was inspected after he bought it, and they said that obviously this guy did not do a good, hire someone like you because it wasn't very
Yeah.
good. Um,
Well, we typically do like the financial side. We look for red flags on physical things or potential problems, but then we go back to the owners and say, "Can you explain this?" But we're
oh,
not usually putting on the overalls and crawling around and up in attics, and we don't typically do that detailed inspection. For us, it's really more about reading the market, reading what's
okay.
happening, where the opportunity is.
Well, so a commercial, and this will kind of get into some other things you do, but like a commercial appraiser, they live off appraisals, so what else can they live off of? I mean, is there any other streams of revenue or opportunities that they could have?
I would say most appraisers, we live off of appraisal work, and most of that appraisal work comes during the financing process, right? Like commercial investors use bank loans just like home buyers, and those banks have to order an appraisal, just a independent party to validate the market and the property. But we do other things. Occasionally I'll have somebody who is thinking about buying something and they don't want to start, go down the path of talking to uh, um, they just want a gut check, right? Somebody who has no horse in the race to say, give it to them completely straight. And so I get hired to review contracts occasionally, to review purchase opportunities, and we'll do like a consulting agreement. And another thing we do is a cost segregation study, which is if you own commercial real estate or any sort of investment real estate, the IRS has set up sort of this cool way to help you save on your taxes. And you can take that long-term depreciation, which is a huge incentive for people to invest in real estate. They might be running their real estate business on a profit, but then they get to factor in like a 29-year depreciation or 27-year depreciation, and suddenly it's like minus $200,000, and it actually creates a tax benefit for them. And with a cost segregation study, they can actually accelerate the depreciation by, we go in and we actually look at all the different components of a building, cost them out separately, and put them on their own depreciation schedules. And most of it actually depreciates a lot faster. So if you're only planning on holding a property for 5 or 10 years, doing an accelerated depreciation can give you an even bigger tax write-off.
And that's something, and that's yeah, that I think that's something that I haven't really. I mean, I heard through an accountant that did one, and the other business owners had never even heard of him before.
Yeah.
And uh, then I heard from somebody else. Anyway, I think it's a missed opportunity. So the cost segregation. So what are the type businesses that should look at that, and which ones shouldn't? Because
Basically,
it's additional
yeah.
costs.
Yeah, I mean, for example, a cost segregation study can cost anywhere from $3,000 up to, $20,000, especially if you go out and hire like, an engineering company to do it, which a lot of accountants, are used to doing. They don't realize appraisers can do it, and we can actually do it a lot more economically. But if you own any real estate that's considered an investment, or if you've bought any real estate and that real estate has a tenant in it, or it has your own business in it, or whether it can actually be single family homes, as long as you've put them into use and you have a tenant in there, um, it qualifies for a cost segregation study and that extra depreciation. And actually, with the new big beautiful bill that's passed, there's now extra bonus depreciation, so you can accelerate even more on some of that. And it's a great play. It's actually one of the secrets of real estate investors, because every time you sell a property and you acquire a new property, you actually get to hit the reset button on that depreciation schedule. So it can be a massive tax savings. If you're making a ton of money elsewhere on your tax return, real estate's a great way to help reduce that tax liability.
Yeah, I think that cost segregation. I think anybody that's going to invest in something should
Yeah.
talk to someone like you, accountant both, and ask about it because, like I said, I've heard so you have to pay whatever that range was, right? But then you find out you get, $300,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I don't know, but I've heard some large amounts of money getting back just, multiple buildings and doing the cost segregation on like four or five different
Big
buildings, and
numbers.
yeah, and no one had, yeah, and these are people that just didn't know about it until they find someone like you that kind of says, "Hey, have you ever thought about it?" So that's something that, and then you mentioned something I didn't know about too. So let's say that you own a property management company and you have a bunch of multiplexes and duplexes and single houses. Can they do that too, you think?
So it depends on who's on the ownership of the LLC or the deed of the real estate.
Okay.
So property management company may own a lot of the real estate that they manage. They definitely should do it. They might own their own facilities, or they might simply just be able to add some value to, if they encourage the owners they work with that, hey, have you
Yeah.
thought about a cost segregation study?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a great referral fee to be had in that.
Well, that's okay. I'm going to circle back on that one because, like I said, that's my brain started going to other people that need to talk to you.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Now, my big thing is um, I love talking about AI. And so that before the show, the other day, I was, kind of asking you like every space that I'm looking at, the trade, you name it, AI's, starting to creep in or it's all over it. So how in your world, where's AI have opportunities going forward?
Well, I would say an appraiser's favorite answer is it depends.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to commit. I would say it's somewhat controversial. I would say in 2024 and early part of 2025, there's a lot of skepticism and doubt, and probably just over the past few months, there's a lot more recognition that, hey, it's saving people so much time. And, we write 100-page narrative appraisal reports, all writing, we don't have forms. And, this is like what an LLM chat GPT was built for. But there's obviously a lot of potential problems. I would say that my company, we're a huge proponent of AI. We think it is the future, and we've been working on finding ways to make appraisal pricing more competitive, more profitable, and are definitely a proponent. So
Okay. Yeah.
we're for it. We're for
Okay. Yeah.
it.
As I say, yeah, 'cause like I said, it just, um, it's just one of those things where you don't have to like change everything. It just you need to be aware of it and then the landscape because I'm always looking. I listen to podcasts and AI, and it just seems like the industries that I've never thought before AI would be in that they're starting. They're starting to show up in and save time. Like you say about writing. I had somebody that I won't name the industry, but he goes to court and like had lots of writing, very deep writing, all most of it in his head, this knowledge over, 30 plus years of doing what he does, or maybe longer. Anyway, and I said, yeah, you gotta be careful about hallucination and all that stuff, right? So you got to double check your work like you double check it anyway. But man, I'll tell you, you could really help yourself out by, um, you typing it all up and then asking Chat GPT to go through it and see if it sounds, is it sound, um, make it sound more easy to read, write it at a lower level so that it reads better and stuff like that. And anyway, he pushed back on me, and then a couple months later, he circled back and said, "Scott, and he's a older gentleman. He said you changed my life because he said that he thought all the knowledge that he had accumulated and it might be 40 years was in his head. He said, "How does Chat know some of that stuff?"
It is, yeah. I've had some of those same experiences, and um, I think everything you said is exactly true. But I also, think it's smart. A lot of businesses are going to become, I'd say white collar businesses, lots of writing, reporting businesses. Those are going to get heavily augmented, and we're focusing on developing like human in the loop strategies.
Yeah,
Uh, but I also think that any smart appraiser is looking into real estate investment, is looking into owning businesses that aren't going to lend themselves to being replaced with ChatGPT. So, um, or getting into the ChatGPT or just AI tech game and using it to help others in the industry. So we're doing a little bit of all of that.
human in a loop. That's the way I look at it too. On that stuff, it's
Yeah.
perfect. So is there? I mean, is there anything else you can think of that I should have covered?
No, I think we're always available to help just give our thoughts if somebody's, sort of has a basic question about like, hey, should I sell my property? Should I rent my property? How do I get a commercial property? How do I invest into commercial real estate? Those are all things love just networking and sharing ideas with people and pointing them in the right direction or collecting data for them and sharing data with them. So we love to see our the people around us succeed and want to be helpful.
Perfect. Well, this has been great. Like I said, I think so. Um, I'll have all your contact information in the show notes, but what's the best way to get a hold of you? Email, phone?
Yeah, I think email
Okay.
Ashton.Rowles at canyonvaluation.com.
Okay. Perfect. Well, I know this is gonna be helpful, and it spurred some ideas for me too on the cost segregation and stuff like that. So, yeah, if anybody here in the Treasure Valley or beyond, because you can do what you do in other states, right?
We can. Yeah, we
Okay.
actually we work with appraisers all over the country and we can do appraisal work anywhere.
Cool. Well, this has been awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Ashton. Until next episode, this has been another episode of Treasure Valley in a quick tips. And thank you very much for listening. Thanks,
All right,
Ashley.
Scott. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.
Yep.